Welcome to a new season of Leadership Live podcast, where talented people become extraordinary leaders. I'm Daphne Horowitz, and I'm here to help you cut through the noise and talk about real leadership issues. Down to earth, solid, caring and confident leadership. No theory, no pie in the sky, no frills or fluff. Because this is what the world needs most right now. For you to lead with confidence, clarity and impact, so that you can build a business that builds people, grows profit, and makes a difference. The world that we live in today is definitely very different to the world we lived in just over a year ago. And I know that a big topic of conversation for many of us, what we're thinking and talking about in our various circles, is what does the future hold? Where are we going with this, and how are things going to be changing in terms of our workplace, our technology, our community, our family, our leadership? So today I'm delighted to host Maulik Parekh, who will shed some light on these topics. He's the author of the book, Future-Proof Your Company and Career, and he's got a fascinating story. He left his job as CEO just around March, April 2020 and planned to take a year off, a sabbatical, to travel the world with his family and spend some good quality time. And as he was leaving, COVID disrupted their plans. And instead of going on a worldwide trip for a year, he needed to take a completely different journey because all of those plans just got cancelled. So what he did was he distilled all of his experience as CEO into a book. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So we are looking at the three key trends that shape the future of work, which are AI and the digital revolution, the gig economy, and millennials in the workplace and how their expectations are different. So this was an amazing conversation, thought-provoking, definitely inspiring, and as you listen, just enjoy and think about how it affects your own workplace and where are you taking these topics into the future. Maulik is the award-winning CEO of global companies such as Inspiro and SPI Global. And under his leadership, these companies won over 100 awards, including Best Company of the Year, Best Employer of the Year, and Best Leadership Team of the Year. He holds an international MBA from the Thunderbird School of Global Management, and he is passionate about future-proofing leaders. And our conversation is all about that. Enjoy, be inspired, and as always, for great leadership resources and information about our events and programs, head onto my website at daphneHorowitz.com. Grab yourself a copy on Amazon of my book, Weekly Habits for Extraordinary Leaders, if you want to develop the skills and habits and behaviors that all extraordinary leaders possess. It's available on Amazon. And if you enjoy listening to Leadership Live, please do leave a review and share it with a friend. So welcome, Maulik. I'm really excited to have you on our show today. And let's just dive right in. You've got a fascinating story about what happened on the 1st of April 2020, what your plans were for that date. So just dive in and tell us about that.
Yeah, well, as they say, life is what happens to you when you have other plans. And that was quite apt for me last year, actually. I decided to end my career with my last company called Inspiro, which is one of the largest BPO companies in the world, with a headquarters here in the Philippines.
And you were CEO my goal of that company?
I was the CEO of the company for 10 years, actually.
Wow.
And I thought now is a good time to take a break. So I decided to end my stint on March 31st, 2020. And we have been planning for that transition for almost a year. So everybody knew about that. And the goal was to take 1 year off, take a sabbatical, and just travel with the family to some 9 countries that we've been dying to get back into, right?
Wow.
And these were places in Asia, in Europe, in Africa, all over the places. And we started buying tickets.
And you were going to be traveling for the whole year? You were going to go from one place to the next type of thing?
Well, we have 2 young kids, so we were thinking of doing a couple of countries and then coming back home and taking care of some stuff here and then going back again. So it wasn't just, taking off for a year and just, traveling. So
and tell us
one by
how old
one,
your children are, because you've got very young kids. I know, two
yes,
girls, right?
they are 4 years and 1 year,
Yeah,
so
amazing.
very, very young ones. And it would have been kind of interesting to just travel with my youngest daughter, who at that time would have been 3 months old.
Wow.
Actually,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly. So we were thinking of doing all of that with the these young ones with
Brave.
us. And then obviously around mid-March, the pandemic hit all of us, and we still had positive energy around it. We thought, okay, maybe it will go away by April. And so we kept all of the trips in check. And one by one, we had to cancel,
Wow.
starting
Wow.
with our trip to Japan during the cherry blossoms, right? That's a place to be when that was taking place. And then we were planning to go to India to see my parents and show them my youngest one. And that we had to cancel, and the trip to Italy got canceled, and I was planning to go to Iceland after that, and it all got canceled. So when I realized that there is no way we will be able to actually travel, I had to change gears, because here I had left my job.
Yeah.
And
you'd
we
been
were
planning
stuck
for this. I mean, this was a year in the making, as you said. You transitioned out of your CEO role. You were planning this major trip and experience with your family, and all of a sudden, you just needed to shift gears. How was that for you?
It was quite interesting, because I was super excited about traveling. And when we realized that we could not, I had to take a step back and say, okay, well, I don't have anything else to do. If I don't do something constructive with my time while I'm stuck in the lockdowns here that went on and on forever, I will go crazy, and I'll probably drive everybody around me crazy, including my wife. So I said, I better take on a project from my bucket list that I have been meaning to do it. And one of that was obviously to write a book. And I have been putting together some thoughts around that book for the last 3 to 4 years, because I've been realizing that there have been some unique trends that I started to notice at the workplace that were just sneaking into our lives, both personal as well as professional. And I thought it'd be important to start writing down my thoughts around it, some anecdotes. And then when I have some time, I need to actually write a book about it. So I thought last year was the best year to do that, because I didn't have anything else to do.
Wow.
So I literally just wrote the book and nothing else for the next 6 months. And I finished the entire book within 6 months, and we went live with it on November 14th, which was the Diwali, which is the biggest festival in India. And, fortunately, it ended up becoming one of the best sellers in 3 different categories on Amazon.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about the book and the topic of the book. But before we dive into that, I'm curious to know, how long did it take you to shift gears like that? Because you had a plan, and you had mapped it out. You had booked the places, you had done what you needed to do, and all of a sudden that fell away. And maybe even not so all of a sudden, because as you say, and I remember that time so clearly, because there was, even for me, also that positivity of, okay, so maybe it's this trip, but the next trip will be fine. Or maybe it's this next couple of months, but surely by, May we'll be up and going and traveling again. So how long did it take you to realize this is where it's at and you need to shift gears?
I think very early on, April 1st, as soon as we canceled our trip to Japan, I knew that this may continue to happen. And, believe it or not, April 1st, my first day out of work, is when the intuition and inspiration came to actually really sit down and write the book.
Wow.
So the month of April, probably the 3 weeks in April, I just did research, because I had notes and, small things that I had written in my notepad for the last 3-4 years. But I had to collate all of that and do a little bit more research before I knew that I had enough material to start writing the book.
Okay.
So until April 21st, I think, I just basically switched gears from, hey, we may travel, to now let's just do research. And then around April 21st, I started writing. Every single day.
So it doesn't sound like
it
took you that long to shift gears.
No. I mean, and that's just me. I think that works with me personally. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who kind of, sits there and complains about the fact that now I cannot travel. Once I set my minds to something, I'm just on it 100%.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I know how to do it. If I was 99% writing a book, I would not have finished it. So it was one of those things. I'm all in or nothing.
All in. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So tell us, you said, I loved how you expressed that you noticed over the last 3-4 years before you started writing the book that there are some work trends that sneaked up on us. So I'd love to hear, what are those work trends that you noticed? And then lead us into, I know it's all about the future of the workplace and future-proofing your workplace. I really do want to hear about that and how leaders what do they need to know? What do they need to do? So let's take it one step at a time and tell us some of your stories. But I'd love to hear a little bit on what are the workplace trends that you noticed that really sneaked up on us in that way?
Sure. So, I mean, I ended up writing the book for two reasons, right? One, professional. I saw the 3 unique trends taking place at the workplace. Number one, I started noticing that the artificial intelligence was slowly trickling into the workplace. It was sneaking into our processes, our jobs, and the things that our employees were doing in the BPO company. The second thing I noticed was that there was a generational shift that was taking place. Meaning, I saw almost 100% of the people that we hired in the last 3 years were either millennials or Gen Zers. And the third thing I noticed was that the gig economy was slowly starting to become a very competitive for companies who are trying to hire people, because suddenly people didn't just have a choice between one company or the next. They also now had a choice to go on their own and become a freelancer. So the increasing popularity of the freelancing was changing not only who got the job done, but also where, when, and how. So these 3 things were taking place at the workplace. Meanwhile, my personal life was also changing. My first daughter, Clara, was born in 2016. And that changed everything for me. I mean, I'm a late bloomer. I was 46 by the time she came along. And my relationship with future changed because of that. You know, before I used to just think about the future when I would have to write a strategic roadmap for the company, or I had to create like a 5-year sales forecast or the business forecast. That's what I connected future with, that it was business related. But suddenly with my daughter coming in, I had to start thinking about, oh my God, I mean, I'm 46, she's 4 years, she's just born in. What kind of world is she going to inherit? You know, what kind of skills and talents she would need to survive and thrive and make something out of it over the next 20, 30 years. So I started paying attention to smallest of the smallest clues and trends that I would normally not do. You know, so
I love that. You're saying that your mindset shifted when your perspective shifted when you became a father. All of a sudden, the future was that much more meaningful or that much more important. You know, what are we building here rather than just, you know, I'm creating my legacy, I'm charting my career path. There is much more at stake, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you actually took the words out of my book. It says that my future became more meaningful overnight.
Yeah.
And so over the last 3 years, I just started doing a lot of research. And then when the time came last April, I said, hey, I'm not traveling anywhere, so I might as well start writing the books. And then I realized that the 3 trends that I was talking about are quite powerful, actually. So there was a research done by McKinsey that said that over the next 10 years, you know, some 375 million jobs around the world are at risk of becoming extinct because of automation and AI. On generational shift, by 2030, you know, the millennials and Gen Zers will make up 2/3 of our workplaces. That means the people we are discounting today because they are, you know, the interns or the entry-level employees, or, you know, they are this hippie, headphone-wearing, soya latte drinking people that we don't pay much attention to, they are going to be, so they are going to be in the places of position and power by the time 2030 comes along. So we better start paying attention to who they are, right? And the third thing, the gig economy Today, some 35% of the US workforce is already involved in gig economy. And when people think of gig economy, sometimes they have this misperception about it that, oh, well, that's just the Uber driver or the guy who delivers my pizza. But that's not the case. Almost 45% of the gig economy workers have professional degrees in accounting, in marketing, in computer science, in technology, right? So we have to start paying attention to that, because that number is going to go from 35% participation in the workforce to 50% by 2030. So freelancing is going to become a bigger part of our economy than what it is today. And we might as well start paying attention to it. So those are the three things that were very much taking place. And I thought it'd be so important to write a book about it, because everybody was so busy with what is urgent and important, which is the COVID-19. So how do we take a step back and
take our attention? Yeah, for sure.
That's right.
And I love the three trends that you've pointed out here, because they are inescapable. As you say, those statistics speak for themselves, the research speaks for itself, but the artificial intelligence and the role of technology, the increasing role of automation and technology, the millennials who do have a different perspective and a different way of viewing the world, a different ideology and value system that we need to integrate into our workplace. And of course, the gig economy, which is something that I'm a huge fan of. And personally, I would love to see corporations starting to be built on gig economy, because I believe in engagement and ownership. And if every employee would change their mindset from employee mindset to actually my own business mindset, as a freelancer or a gig worker, where this is important because it's my business, I think we could get a lot more, never mind profitability and success, but also fulfillment, because it just feels different when you're engaged in the work because it's your own. So those are three huge topics, and Adam, let's dive into pick one and let's dive into it a little bit and hear some more. What do leaders need to know in order to prepare themselves for this future world of work?
So in the book, I actually provide 5 ways to future-proof your company for the leaders. And then I also talk about 5 ways to future-proof your career, because I think both of them are very important. So in terms of future-proofing your career, the first, your company, let's just talk about, given your audience, they're all leaders of large organizations. The first thing you have to do is, the future is digital. You have to transform your business. And I talk about one great example in the book that, Domino's Pizza. I used to live in the US, and I used to be a big fan of Domino's Pizza. Back in 2006, when I was there, the only 2 ways you can order Domino's Pizza was by either calling or visiting their store. But over the last 12 years, they have completely revamped their organization. They have gone from being a pizza company to now being a technology company that happens to be in the pizza business. And they have gone through massive digital transformation. Today, you have 15 different ways to order Domino's Pizza in the US, including an app where there is a 0-click option. You don't like clicking anything, you just open the app, you keep it open for a few seconds, it automatically orders your favorite pizza, and it gets delivered to your home within 30 minutes.
Wow.
Right? They're the first company to deliver pizza by drone. And they are now talking about delivering pizza through autonomous vehicles. Wow. Again, it's in the test process. Whether it'll be rolled out anytime soon or not is a different story. But they're ahead of it. And the reason I talk about that in the book is because last year, in 2020, Domino's Pizza's revenue and their margins actually increased by around 15%.
Amazing.
And why is it important to know? Because Pizza Hut, company in the same industry, the parent company of Pizza Hut, filed for bankruptcy.
Really? Wow.
Yes, last year.
Wow.
So look at the contrast.
I want to add a story there, because I didn't know that Pizza Hut has filed for bankruptcy, because it's still very alive.
Parent company. The parent company. Okay. Yes.
Because just to tie into what you were saying about technology and how you can order pizza, for me I think it was about maybe 8 months ago, I got a text message to say you can now order Pizza Hut pizza via WhatsApp. And the amazing thing was, I ordered the pizza just because I wanted to see how it works. And I
Works,
didn't
yeah.
have to put in my address. I didn't have to put in, it read all the, it said to me, do I have permission to get your location? Yes. Is this the location? Yes. I just had to, it was a few clicks and I got my pizza. And the experience of it is what made me order that pizza in the first place.
Absolutely, and I'm
So
glad
people
they are
looking for
doing
that
it.
experience and the convenience. Yeah, they're doing it here. Yeah.
They're doing it, but they're a bit late, right? I mean,
little
so
bit late,
the
yes.
point that I was trying to make with Domino's Pizza is that they did not wait for COVID-19,
Yes.
where many companies did.
Yes, as
And
a
the
response,
companies who
it's
wait,
true.
yes, they had no choice but to digitally transform. Whereas Domino's Pizza, without somebody putting a gun to their head, did it on their
Well, that's
own
being
for the
ahead of the
last 8
curve,
years.
right? Being ahead of the curve,
Exactly.
thinking about what will be the next level, what will be even better, not thinking, wow, well, we can do this because, you can phone your delivery or you can order it online. No, we are going to make it even. That's continuous improvement, bringing in where we are going towards the future and bringing that into your business and saying, how can we use that?
And proactively, right? To your point,
Proactively.
Doing it proactively
Yeah.
before you have to do it
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's the first thing you have to do. One thing that I always mention when I'm speaking on the podcast or during my webinars is that a lot of people think that digital transformation is about technology. It's not about technology. So when companies are starting the process of digitally transforming themselves, they have to take a step back and ask themselves, what is the end goal here? The end goal is not changing the technology. The end goal is, how am I going to increase the level of customer experience? How am I going to enhance the employee experience? And do I need to revamp my business model? Those are the 3 questions you have to ask before you digitally transform yourself. Then technology actually becomes a means to an end. Companies fail. 84% of the companies who take on digital transformation, they fail because they think it's about the technology. So they would go out and buy the latest technology and stick it into their legacy system. That doesn't transform them. It just, creates
So what are
more
those 3
complicated.
questions again? Let's just repeat them.
So the 3 questions are, how do I enhance my customer experience? How do I enhance my employee experience? And how do I enhance my business model? Those are the 3 questions. Using technology. So the reason why Pizza Hut impressed you with their WhatsApp is because the technology enhanced your customer experience.
Exactly, the experience. That's
Yes,
very interesting.
they didn't
So
do
I'm just
something.
thinking from the point of view of a CEO who's sitting in a company that maybe is thinking about how to transform, and they hear a story like this about Domino's Pizza or Pizza Hut, and they think, but how does this apply to my business? You're saying that if they focus on the customer experience, on the employee experience, and on their business model, and say, how can I use technology to transform that, they'll come up with ideas, because it's about the experience and not necessarily the product that you are selling at the end of the day. People are looking for an experience.
Exactly. I mean, so the simplest way to look at it is ask yourself within your organization, are the processes digitized, right? If somebody want to take a leave, take a vacation, do they need to fill up a paper form, or is there an app that your company has created where it's all automated, where an employee can literally just go to that app and get their vacation leave?
And Maulik, I'm just thinking that it's true that if you're proactive and you're ahead of the curve, you are going to be a step ahead of your competitors. But the truth is that COVID has put us into that space of having to ask those questions. I'm just thinking, for example, very traditional area is banking, right? Or insurance. And we've seen those industries fly because COVID has forced everything to go online. So I can pick up the phone or go online and take out a loan or, exchange currency or whatever. It's just catapulted the speed and the level of convenience and the ease of doing services. And I think this is really going to be the focus on the future, the ease, convenience, experience, exactly what you're talking about.
No, that's right. I mean, Bill Gates, I had one of the very revered executive here in the Philippines on my podcast, the Future Proof Leader podcast. And she mentioned that they had to change their mindset from being a brick and mortar bank to click and mortar bank because they had invited, one of the guest speakers to come in, and he said that the banking will be around for years. Banks may not be.
That's lovely. And that's, again, a trend that we're seeing, because if you take Uber, Airbnb, all of those, even books and reading, whatever, all those companies that it's just the technology behind it is what it is.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So
Awesome.
the first thing is digitally transform yourself. The second thing you have to do is create a culture of innovation. Right. And I know innovation is such a cliched term nowadays because everybody's just throwing it out as if they own the innovation. And one of the first things you have to do is to define what innovation means. Because if you were to Google what innovation means, there are at least 100 different definitions. So in the book, I actually say one of the most succinct definition that I came across about innovation was innovation is executing new ideas to create value. That's as simple as that. That means you have to execute. Secondly, it has to be new ideas. And third, it has to create value, most importantly. So you execute new ideas, but it doesn't create any value for your customers, your employees, or other stakeholders, then it's not innovation, right? So it's very important that everybody in the company understand what innovation means to you. The second thing is you have to define what culture of innovation is about. That means culture of innovation is basically asking yourself, are you married to the timeless part of your business, or are you married to the temporary part of your business? And I give an example in the book that you look at Blockbuster, which used to be a huge video rental company in the US. The leaders in that company were married to the temporary part of their business, which was their existing business model, their existing services and products. And because they were so married to their existing business model, they did not see the trends that were going to disrupt their business model.
Well, I think we could say the same for Kodak, right? I mean, that's
exactly.
another
Kodak, very great example, actually, that they were so married to their analog film. Even though they invented the digital mobile camera, they did not do anything with it.
I will also, though, add, I mean, that's an interesting, are you married to the temporary or are you married to the timeless? Because if you had to ask the leaders of Blockbuster or the leaders of Kodak at the time, they would say the timeless part of their business, I'm willing to bet they would say the timeless part of their business they saw as their core product, their core offering.
And that's the mistake, right? So
yes,
the timeless part of the business for me is not your products or your services or your business model. The timeless part of your product or your business is actually your collective creativity and ingenuity of your employees.
Yes, which they didn't see at the time, but I think that is a really good question to ask our listeners out there. Think about what is the timeless part of your business offering service, because it's not probably what you think it is. That's what I would say. It's probably not what you think it is.
Right. I mean, if you look at the example of Netflix, for example, right, which was a competitor to Blockbuster, Netflix also started as a DVD by rental, mail by rental model, right? But they were not married to that model. So what happened in 2007, they very quickly made a pivot and they became a streaming company. In 2013, they made another pivot, again, because they were not married to anything.
Yes.
They were married to the timeless part of their... That's
Don't be married to anything. Anything can change.
Yeah, my wife is looking at me, is like, what are you talking about here? So...
I think we can get into trouble with that.
I'll be sleeping
just
on
a figure of speech. Just a figure of speech.
That's a figure of speech, right. But the reason it's an important one is because Netflix was married to the collective creativity and ingenuity of their employees. So in 2013, they made another pivot, and they, instead of just mailing movies in 1999, they started actually producing movies, award-winning movies, right? Yep. So what's the difference between Blockbuster and Netflix? Blockbuster was married to the temporary, their existing business model. Netflix was married to creating a culture of innovation through the creativity of their employees. And if you focus on that, your return on investment will be significantly more than just focusing on your existing business model, because one day it will become obsolete.
Okay, so I think we were on 5 steps to future-proof your business.
Yes,
so
these are the 2. Yes,
so those were 2. We've still got 3, right?
Yeah. So look, I mean, the third one, which is very important, and it's
and I know people have to go read your book, so don't give it all away, right?
No, I won't. It's like 50,000 words, so I don't think I'll be able to cover all of them. But the third thing, very important, and it's related to the Gen Zs and millennials, is the future is meaningful. Instill purpose. Meaning,
I think that I love that.
It is so important for the companies to have something that is more than their quarterly results as their primary goal.
And in a way that every employee can say, this is what it means to me. The job that I'm doing here today is meaningful because, and they've got to be able to answer that.
That's right. So just like what, Timberland is doing, for example, they've announced that they would plant some 50 million trees around the world. Why are they doing it? That they're not in the business of planting trees, but they are connecting with their employee base desire to create a greener future.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There are so many other examples. JetBlue, why is it a company that has relatively done well compared to others? Because their purpose is actually to create friendlier sky for the people who are traveling. Yeah. They want to instill humanity both on air as well as on the ground.
Yep.
I mean, we all need that when you are traveling.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. We need to know that we're working towards something bigger. I mean, one of my favorites is Tom's Shoes, who say that for every pair of shoes you buy, you actually donate a pair of shoes to some underdeveloped child or something in an underdeveloped country or something like that. I think that's part of the mission.
So a lot of companies have been doing that, but unfortunately they haven't gotten to the point where 2/3 of your employee base would be Gen Zers and millennials.
So that, and I think that's the difference here. Your employees are requiring you to actually participate in something like this.
That's right. I mean, so you will see more and more companies, including some of the most conservative companies in the world, now getting on the bandwagon of having the purpose, right? And taking some very interesting positions which may not be good for them politically, but they are willing to take them because they believe that if they don't do that, they would lose the employees, also the consumers.
Yes.
So that's the third one.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that it's got to be genuine and authentic. I always say that. You can't do it because you're ticking off a box or checking a box to say, I've done it because that's what people want. It's got to be genuine. And people can know. People are going to know very well and be able to build that trust with you as a brand when it's authentic.
Well said. It's so important because if your purpose is just, collecting dust on your walls, people will see through that.
Yeah.
If you only talk about that during the town hall, but then during your regular day-to-day activities, you don't show that.
Exactly.
Then people will say, okay, you know what? This is just a presentation.
Yeah, very quickly you'll lose trust. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. What's the fourth one?
So the fourth one is the future is new. Inspire learning, lifelong learning within your employees. AT&T and Amazon's have assigned billions of dollars to upskill and reskill their employees. Each company would have to ask this very basic question, and they would have to do this at each employee level. How would the job of each employee change between now and 2030? This is for the next 10 years. And you'll have to map out that job based on the influence of artificial intelligence, based on the influence of digital generations coming in, and the influence of freelancing. And if there are jobs that would completely be eliminated because of AI and automation, then companies would need to ask themselves the same question that Amazon is asking. What would I do with my warehouse employees? Mm-hmm. Do I want to completely reskill them and get them to do something completely different than they are doing today? You would also have to look at the employees and say, maybe part of the employee's job would be done by AI. So that would free up, let's say, 40% of their time. What would I want them to do now with the remaining 40% that would create more value for the employees and the company? So you will have to also upskill your employees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the two huge questions companies would have to do, and they would have to do it almost at an employee level, literally like one by one, map out the career for their existing employees. And they would also have to decide what skills that we would need 5-10 years down the road, whether they are in the data science arena, whether they are in the machine learning arena, that they need to either prepare internally or to have a plan to source it from outside.
Yeah.
So that's the fourth element to being future-proof over the next 10 years. And I think that's
awesome because it actually forces leaders to focus on the future of their employees as well, not just the future of their business, because you could theoretically say if, we're going to be able to automate processes with AI and technology and all of that, then maybe great, cost cutting, I don't need to have employees. But it's not about that. It's about how do you develop your employees? Because for one, I'm a big believer that human beings have the capacity to think that, AI hasn't got there yet. So you want to be able to develop and grow that capacity within your employees so that you create loyalty as well with them and that there's a continued collaboration to up-level your business and do the next thing that's even better.
That's right. Exactly. So people are not going anywhere, at least for the next 10 years. Maybe, 40 years down the road, maybe there is a point of singularity and, the AI will be significantly better in everything than
maybe,
human beings.
Who knows?
But it's at least not for the next 10 years. So the book is about the next 10 years. So I think it's so important that companies really take a moment and map out where the world is going for their employees.
Exactly. And I just want to highlight this point here because I think what's important is it's increasing the humanness of business, not replacing humans with machines. It's increasing the humanness and making sure you are using people for their best abilities and potential and capabilities.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's almost like it's a title of actually one of the chapters in the book. It says the future is AI. It's for the career part. Be a human. And it may sound so interesting or so weird when I say this, but we have spent the last 20 years, we have spent billions of dollars trying to make AI more human. I mean, we have given chatbots human names. We have given Sophia, the humanoid robot, the facial expressions of a human, right? It looks really creepy, but we have tried that. And yet, we have spent billions of dollars at the same time taking human beings and turning them into automatons, into robots. Because what do? We hire them and we say, hey, let's go through the training. Exactly. Here is the box you would live in. Yes. This is the process. This is the rule and regulation that you need to follow. So we take people, their creativity, and then say, oh, forget about your creativity. Forget about your unique personality. Yeah. Put all of that out of the door. Just do what we tell you to do.
Yeah. Operate like us. Follow the rules.
How sad is that? Exactly.
Terrible.
How sad is that?
Yeah, very sad. Good. So I love increasing awareness for leaders around that. Okay, so number 5.
Number 5 is the future is fun. Enjoy expedition. And the reason I added that chapter is because when I look at all the things that will be changing, all of our lives that will be disrupted, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be, it will take everything we have to thrive in these very disruptive times. So one thing leaders can do for their employees is to create an environment where they're having fun. Yeah. And it doesn't take a lot of money to do that. It's about creating a culture where people can bring their personality to work and be themselves, bring their uniqueness to work and share it with their peers and with the customers and other stakeholders. I give an example of Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines is the only country, I think, in the entire world, I know for sure it's in the US, for 47 years consecutively, they have been profitable until last year. Since the beginning of their journey, they have been consecutively profitable as an airline. And why? Because at Southwest, people are hired for their unique personality and they're asked to bring it to work. If you have traveled through Southwest in the US, they have the funniest stewardesses and stewards in the entire industry,
And they've actually set an industry standard with that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how is it? Because, the chairman and founder of their company, when he used to show up, he's no longer with us anymore, but he used to show up in the employee gatherings wearing Elvis Presley costume, right? He's like, hey, let's not take ourselves too seriously. Yeah. Let's have fun. Yeah. So it's so important to create that culture where employees, while they're going through this extremely disruptive, very stressful time, are actually enjoying this journey. And when they look back at this life, at this time of their life, they would remember it as the journey of their lifetime.
Awesome.
Not
I love it.
A nightmare that was recurring every single week.
Or something that they had to do because they had to put, food on the table or whatever it is, that it actually is part of your life and it's an exciting part of your life. And here we are remembering once again that we are human beings, which is far more than just turning us into those bots or work machines that need to have those outputs. And I've also spoken quite a bit about my experience of, when I was working in the corporate environment where I felt like I was treated like a workhorse. We want your outputs and that's it. And that's kind of my mission is very much linked into that. So, wow, that is incredible. I've loved our conversation. I think a lot of thought-provoking ideas in there, and definitely everyone listening, go and get the book and read it and start. I think key is start those conversations in your businesses, in your environments. Start talking about it and how you can bring in those changes. So Maulik, thank you so much for being with us today. And maybe just to end off, tell people how they can reach you. We'll put all the details in the show notes as well, where they can buy your book, and maybe leave us with a final message for our listeners. What do you want them to take away?
No, thank you. Well, thank you for having me on your podcast, by the way. If they are interested in getting the book, it's available on Amazon. The book's title is Future-Proof Your Career and Your Company, Flourish in an Era of Artificial Intelligence, Digital Natives, and the Gig Economy. And if they want to learn more about my projects, they can visit my website where they can connect with all my social media handles. And the website is maulikparekh.com.
Awesome. And you'll put those in the show notes. And your final words, final message for our listeners today?
The final message is, looking at my 4-year-old daughter, I have realized that I need to be a lifelong learner. The capacity she has to learn new things every day is just unbelievable. Her capacity to question everything, her capacity to be curious about the smallest of the smallest things is so inspiring to me, because as adults, we lose that capacity to be curious, to ask questions when we don't know, when we don't understand something. And so we are surrounded by clues about the future. We just have to be curious, like my 4-year-old daughter, or any 4-year-old for that matter, and really just drink the Kool-Aid that the future has to bring to us.
Awesome. So it's like really that positive outlook. And I always say, stay as curious as a 5-year-old. So that's very similar to your 4-year-old. And thank you. Thanks again for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
This wraps up another episode of Leadership Live. Thank you for joining us today. And now let's continue the conversation. Do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions? Connect with me on LinkedIn or head on to my website at daphnahorovitz.com, where you can download a free sample of my new book, Weekly Habits for Extraordinary Leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a friend so that I can continue to reach and support leaders just like you. So tune in next week to Leadership Live, where talented people become extraordinary leaders.